All right. We on?
All right. Yep, it's on.
Today's topic, cybersecurity for founders, what every small business needs to get right now. If your business, if you're in business, you're not too small to get hacked. And if you don't secure your core accounts, it's not a question of if, but when. Today, our guest is Todd Mitchell. He is the owner of Cybersecurity for Biz LLC, and he's a retired U.S. Navy veteran and cybersecurity expert with over 30 years of experience. We are Nate and Simone. We talk all things marketing, and welcome today. And before we get started in our discussion, I want you to share this with another small business owner that you know who needs to know. Don't wait until you get hacked, before you start paying attention to discussions like this. Okay, let's get started. Hey, Nate. Hey, Todd.
Hey, 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 hello, hello. Welcome, Todd. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you
Um,
guys for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the things I wanted to touch on real quick is why this might matter for our audience or for any audience really for that matter. But a lot of business owners, founders, they focus on being visible, growing their business and whatnot, but they forget about these hidden risks that can basically sabotage any progress that they've made and you know ruin the whole thing potentially. And one of the things we talk about three things on this show a lot. So one is visibility, being visible to the right people, the people that you want to find you, but then also the visibility internally in the company, like making sure that everyone has access to the right information when they need it. Viability, can the business stand on its own 2 feet? And value. Are you building a business that has value and could potentially be uh, given to someone or sold to someone, or are you just building a glorified job for yourself? No. And so that's for today's conversation. I think it's going to tie into the viability and value aspects, especially because basically, if you have a business that isn't secure, it's not sustainable or transferable for that matter. Who's going to want it? Basically, if there's any like all these threats, the potential for threats there. So, okay. So the first part here, we're going to talk about these invisible threats to small businesses, and it's almost like people talking about kind of like how I imagine how people felt when scientists first started talking about germs, little things that you can't see, and people thought, "Oh, you're crazy, right?" No, but this is the real thing. Um, Solopreneurs, micro businesses, doesn't really matter how small you are. They're actually more vulnerable potentially to cyber threats. And there's some common misconceptions around this, I think. Basically, a lot of people thinking I'm too small to be a target. I already have an antivirus. What else do I need? Or it's not going to happen to me. So let's get Todd into the conversation here. Todd, what is the most common mistake you see small business owners making with their security?
So I think one of the most common mistakes is not doing the basics. There are things that everybody kind of knows about, but nobody thinks about, and it doesn't become top of mind, uh, and it's not being tracked throughout the business. So, and what I mean by basics, strong passwords, multi-factor authentication, I can't stress that enough. That is one of the, in my opinion, probably the single biggest thing you can do to upgrade your security. Of course, you have the other tools, software that can help, good security software and things, but good security can't stop you when you have employees sharing passwords or you have weak passwords and compromised accounts. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that you can do to help yourself, is training you and all your employees on the basics and just kind of keeping those in mind, uh, monthly refreshers, send, even if it's just a little quick email, hey, don't forget to go, check and see if this is there, because we tend to set these things up years ago and then you forget about them and you never go back and look at it, and depending on how long you've had your like email, for an example, a Gmail account. how long have you had that thing? 10, 12 years? 12 years ago, it was your dog's name with a number one on the end of it was a good password. That is no longer the case. You got to have something 16, 20 characters long, letters, numbers, symbols, you can't remember it. So you got to have a password manager to do that for you. That kind of thing. So these are things that just need to be kind of thought about periodically throughout the cycle. As for why it's important, you know, kind of talking about what you were just alluding to at the intro, I think visibility is also a thing because as business owners, we want to be visible.
Yeah.
So, our name, address, email, phone number, all that junk is out
Yeah.
there everywhere. I mean, we have a habit as a business owner of putting that thing in as many places as we could possibly think of. And
Yeah.
so that information is already
Yeah.
floating around out there. And so you've got to make sure that you're protecting yourself if somebody's trying to use that against you. I mean, just think about how big of a hit your business is going to take if you do make the 6 o'clock news as the guy who just had all his customers' personal information hacked.
Yeah.
Who wants to hire you as a bookkeeper when you just got all your clients' identity theft?
Yeah.
That kind of a thing. Um,
I just well, I going along in that same vein, I was going to ask you, what do you say to the business owner who says 2FA is or two-factor authentication is just too many steps?
well, it is, and I do acknowledge that it's inconvenient. However, look at it this way: don't worry about for hypothetical purposes. Don't worry about how or why, but your username and password to your bank account is public knowledge somehow. There's 3 billion people on this planet with internet access that can get into that account. If you got a text code going to your phone, now you only have a half a dozen people that can get to you and your phone at the same time, and you're probably related to most of them. So you just took your attack surface from billions to a handful. It
Nice.
is the
Yeah.
single easiest way to reduce the number of people that can hack into your account.
Yeah. Nice. What do you think that the smaller businesses, micro businesses, are especially vulnerable? Are they particularly vulnerable, in your opinion? And
Yes.
why would that be?
Um, they're actually statistically 2/3 of the hacking are on small business, not on large business. You just
Mhm.
don't know that because you never see it in the news. If
Yeah.
if Nate gets hacked, it's not going to make the 6 o'clock news on
Yep.
CNN.
No.
If IBM gets hacked, it'll make the 6 o'clock news. So we hear about all the big boys,
Oh,
but we never hear about the smaller ones. And
wow.
and the other big deal with that is so not only does it twice as likely to happen, but the repercussions are far worse for a small business owner. Home
Wow.
Depot, Target, we hear about all these, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, you hear about all these big businesses getting hacked. Cost them $75 million to clean up the mess. They write it off as a bad year and keep right on going. Something like that happens to you, you're done. You're lucky to keep your house, let alone your business.
Mm, no doubt. So, just to put that in perspective, you said 2/3 of small businesses.
Two-thirds
Um,
of the hackings are on small businesses.
so okay, so I see, I see. So 30% or excuse me, 60%, 66% of all hackings occur on small businesses. Okay.
Correct.
And there's 36 million small businesses. And so that's quite a large
Yeah.
number to pick from, I guess, for hackers out there. Yeah. Um,
They're
way
easy
more of
targets.
those than
They
there
know
are of
you
the
don't
large
have the
ones.
security.
Yes,
You
yes.
know,
Less of an effort, right, for them.
yep.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about, do you have a good horror story for us? Because we're getting close to Halloween,
I,
so
I do, in fact, have a good horror story,
all
and this is
right.
very recent, like actively still going on from about 2 weeks ago. Uh, well, actually, it started, what is this, October? So it's almost 2 months now. Started Labor Day weekend. Google account access got hacked, Google Workspace. And they got in through there. They were able to look at all the emails. So they're seeing emails coming in from, Stripe saying you got paid, all these other things. And then they systematically started going from there. Every couple of days, something got worse. They shut down a couple of other email accounts, stole all their files out of iCloud, uh, sent emails to the payment processor saying this person no longer represents a company, changed all the financial information to this other person at these other bank accounts, so they're no longer getting paid from their business, killed their business website, took over their domain, shut it off, all kinds of things. And it's just getting progressively worse and worse. And it all started with an email hack. Because if you think about it, your main business email, you're getting emails from your payment processor, you got emails from your bank, you got emails from all your clients. So now they got all your contact information for your entire business.
We're
Are
using
they, are
email
they,
for authentication too for some of
Exactly.
our online
And,
accounts.
oh,
yep. And
yeah.
that's
So
why they
if they have
want.
your email, they can get into
Wow.
everything.
And that's what they're doing. They're getting into all these accounts. The first thing they do is change the password, change the multi-factor authentication, or set it up if you didn't have it going already. So now you
Mm.
can't get back in because they're the ones getting the code that says, "Is this you?" And they're going, "Nope, not me." And then you can't get back into your account.
Are you attempting, are they attempting to hold them for ransom, or is it they've already
No,
got everything they
this
need, so why
they
bother?
just searching
Yeah,
for information. Exactly. Yeah, there's no
yeah,
ransom attached to this. This is just wreaking havoc and it's
yeah,
basically destroying the business. Uh, and if you have sensitive information, financial information or healthcare information, and government secrets, if you're in the contracting world, things like that, um,
yeah.
now you're in big trouble because you got to report that stuff to the federal government and
Mm,
then you're going to get audited and blah, 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 and just,
mm.
fines from the
Oof.
FTC
Lose
or
your security clearances
whatever.
and
Yep, all that kind of stuff. So it
yikes.
just spirals downhill fast. And it all starts with a simple email, which goes back to what I was saying of strong password, multi-factor authentication. I look at multi-factor and I like to use analogies of house security because most people don't understand the internet and things. Um, this is like the deadbolt lock on your front door. It's there. Why aren't you using it?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah, yeah.
it's like you don't
I
think
have to
twice
do
about
two
going into a
things
hotel.
though, Todd.
You don't think twice about
Yeah,
walking into a
yeah,
hotel room and flipping
yeah,
that little chain thingy over the
yeah,
door. Why are
yeah,
you not using
yeah,
multi-factor?
yeah. All right.
There's
Yeah.
sorry, before you go on, I wanted to
No,
ask
no, you're
this
fine.
one question about multi-factor authentication. So um, there are some sites where your multi-factor authentication, they're not sending the like a code to your phone or sending a code to your email. They're actually requiring you to have an authenticator app
Mhm.
that you use. So, and I don't know, a lot of people, I think I tried one and I don't know, the site that I was using it on, it just kept rejecting the code. And so I stopped using it. I know, I guess I need to just like, okay, get over it and just start using it again. Plus the authenticator app is it's not a free thing. You have to, it's
No,
an
it's
extra charge
no, it's
for you.
free. You can
You can
download
do free
Authenticator
ones.
for free.
Which
Yeah.
Yeah.
authenticator app is
Uh,
free?
I use Google Authenticator.
Really? I
Yep,
tried using that
Microsoft.
and it was like it was like there was a trial for a few days, but then after that you had to pay for it.
You might have signed up for some fancy pants plan that you really don't need. You can download it for free and use it. All you have to do is
I
open the
use
app up, and it's got the easiest way is it's got a little camera button you hit, and then you just scan the code. Whatever website you're on is trying to give you a little QR code, and you just scan that with the app, and it puts the name and then starts giving you the codes. Um, so I'll say this. There's the old way. Well, I shouldn't say the old way. There's the simple way of texting you a code. There's the Authenticator app, and now they have this passwordless key pass things. Um, and then there's biometrics, which is like fingerprints, retina scans, all that stuff. Those require, the biometrics is not that popular because that's assuming everybody's got some kind of hardware that can take their fingerprint or retina scans or facial recognition or whatever. A lot of us don't. It works great on your phone, not so much on your home computer if you got a desktop. Um, the authenticators are good. You can get them for free. Microsoft and Google both have one. Um, and
I use LastPass for
yeah,
what it matters. Yeah.
yeah, LastPass will
Authenticator
integrate
has a
and
free
use
one.
LastPass
your.
has an
Yeah. It's
authenticator
just
in
an
it.
authenticator. Yeah.
It,
No, like they have their own separate authenticator.
yeah, and it will
Okay.
also integrate with Google Authenticator, so you can pull in. So
Yeah.
it'll go check your code from Google and put it in automatically for you to save you a step.
Oh.
But um, so Authenticator app is more secure than texting a code, only because the code is good for 5 or 10 or 15 minutes, and that Authenticator app is only good for 30 seconds before the code changes. So it's a little bit more secure. It doesn't give bad guys as much time to intercept your message and figure out what the code is and put it in and all that stuff. Um, Fingerprint and retina scan obviously is the most protective because you're the only one on the planet that has that, assuming you don't have some identical twin or something weird like that. Um, but the honest truth is that's like arguing over which is better, a deadbolt lock or a cipher lock or whatever. As long as you got one of them on there, you're way better than you were. That's all I'll say. I mean, yes, there's some that are better than others and all that, but same thing with, the password managers, which one's better? One pass, last pass, Nord pass. As long as you're using one and you're not writing down passwords on an Excel spreadsheet and saving it on your desktop unencrypted that the bad guys can find in 2 seconds when they get into your computer, you're better than nothing, right? So I always say whichever is more convenient for you. If you can't figure out the authenticator, at least have them text you a code. If you can do the authenticator, great. I've used Google Authenticator for everything because I've got key software I use for my business that forces me to use it. So I had to start using it for that. And I figured, well, I already got the thing. I might as well put everything else on here too. So, yeah.
Hmm. Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like I was using a different authenticator. I wasn't using Google. So I
Okay.
downloaded
Yeah.
the Google one, and Google is not asking me for any money. Okay.
No, no, doesn't. I've had it for years and has never asked me for anything. Because Google doesn't do that. That's not their model. They give you everything for free. They're they're
Yeah.
probably they're probably selling marketing information to somebody on the back end or
Well,
whatever.
that's
Right,
what it
right,
is,
right.
right? We pay Google with our attention and our eyeballs. Oh,
Yep.
Mhm.
okay.
Well, yeah, we can could probably have a whole another episode about this, but um, it is interesting that Google's AI specifically says that we're not keeping your information. However, the others do not. So anyway, but
Well, that's the AI piece. What they're
yeah,
trying to tell you
that's
is
a whole
their
other thing.
AI is not using your personal information for
Yeah,
training. But don't think that
yes,
the rest of
yes,
Google isn't. You know.
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so Todd, if what is one thing that a business owner or founder can do today, or what do you think they should do today with just the one thing? Is it the password manager? Is it the 2FA? What do you think?
I think the 2FA, and well, both, because strong password and setting up multi-factor authentication. And by strong password, I'm talking 15, 20 characters long with letters, numbers, and symbols. The big key to that is you can't find the word in the dictionary. If you've ever had Office products or PDFs, you can search the word marketing in a 200-page PDF and it comes back in seconds and tells you every page it found it on. That's how long it takes a bad guy to crack your password if they can find it in the dictionary. They use the same software, same algorithm. I mean, it's set up slightly different, but basically that's the premise. So you want to have, like the word learn or something like that instead of spelling it out right. You switch all the E's for threes and the A's for ats and the whatever, because you're not going to find L3 at RN in the dictionary, right? So I always tell people if you don't want to pay for a password manager and you want to do it all on your own, think of some big long phrase, your favorite movie, favorite book,
Yeah.
whatever. Uh,
Somebody said one time to use your favorite Bible verse because it includes the number and like the colon, so it's like a
yeah,
symbol of numbers and capitals and
something like
the whole
that. Yep.
sentence. Yeah.
But then you go back through and take all the. I mean, it could be something cheesy like, Nathan's master password or whatever. But then you go
Yeah.
through and start
Yeah.
switching out letters for numbers and symbols.
Yeah.
In your brain, it's still Nathan's master password, so you can remember it. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
yep. And then set up that
S-
multi-factor. Those are key. So it's technically two things they have to do, not one. You got to make a strong password, then you got to set up your multi-factor. And
Okay.
do that on especially the accounts that gain access to computers. Like Simone said earlier, you got that
Yeah.
Gmail account. You're like, oh, I don't say anything important in there. I just talk to grandma about kittens or whatever. Okay, fine. But that's what you use to make your Apple ID to get into all your Apple devices. That's what you use to make your Microsoft account to get into all your Windows. That's what you use to log into your Android phones because they all run off of Google email. It's like that email is a lot more important than you think it is because it gains access to all your devices.
It can
Yeah.
bring the whole house down.
Mhm.
If you're
Very
just
quickly. That and anything,
yeah.
and after that, I would prioritize it to anything that you keep any of your clients' information in, anything you pay bills with, and even on the personal side, same thing. All your utility bills and mortgage and banks and all that, those things have got to be locked down because that's where they're going for.
Yeah. Um, do you have a toolkit that you suggest to solopreneurs or that you offer them in some
Um,
capacity?
Not necessarily a toolkit. I have more of a process to build a culture.
Okay.
Um, I work with business owners on how to identify the right way to do things. Well, I shouldn't say the right way, but how the best way to do things to keep their information safe and keep their employees safe, and then document that so that it's repeatable from now on. Because when you get, that person moves on, you hire somebody new, do they know how to do it the right, that best way or not? So I have that stuff documented, and then and just build a culture. Uh, have training? Do people know how to identify a phishing attack? Do people know what a strong password looks like? Do they know how to set up multi-factor authentication? Those are basics that everybody in your company should know how to do.
Yeah. And don't don't assume that if you were the business owner, that everyone else that works for you knows.
Exactly.
If this is not new to you, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not new to everyone. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's perfect. Simone was talking about earlier about things to document. What was one of them was is anything high stakes, right? Oh, she might,
Yeah.
might have.
Yeah.
Okay. High was it high impact,
High
high stakes,
stakes,
and
high stakes, high repetitive, yeah, and
highly repetitive.
highly and prone to human error.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So
that is so accurate and such a good thing to do because the reality is 92% of data breaches are caused by human error.
mm,
Okay. So I'll
yeah,
say that one again. 92% of data breaches are caused by human error. So, Hollywood makes this also all think that there's some guy in a hoodie in his mom's basement clacking away on a keyboard and that's how you get hacked. That's not how you get hacked. You get hacked because you clicked on a phishing email, downloaded malware, took over your computer, sent them all the stuff they needed to get into all your other accounts. You get hacked because, you're sharing passwords and it might not even be you. You don't even realize you have the same password for your bank as you have for Netflix. All your kids are trading their Netflix password for the Hulu password around town. So now everybody in your neighborhood knows your bank password. You don't even know it yet. I mean,
oof,
it's a human error. That's
yeah,
accidentally spilling a cup of coffee and blowing up the database, or hit delete, dragged your mouse, something, whatever, and dropped everything in the trash can. Just little things like that. That's what gets us into trouble. And if we can get people to actively, you know, uh, like Simone said, document this is the way you need to do it. And that way they have references. You get new people in, here's your training, here it is, all documented. This is step one, step two, step three, go through this process and build in the best practices into that. And of course, practice what you preach. So you got to start doing this stuff so you can get everybody else to do it. But
yeah.
um, that's that's the only way to combat this. It really is.
All
There was
right,
one
folks.
thing
Oh,
that
go
I
ahead.
always advocated when I was in the workforce, and I still do now, is that like my personal email is different from my work email.
Mm,
There's a guy that I have on my mailing list, and I've had him on my mailing list for years, and he works for a military installation. He's using his government email address to get emails from me,
yeah.
and I'm thinking, what I'm sending you has absolutely nothing to do with your work for the military. It's
Well,
just like this email that he uses for everything. And I'm thinking, like, if he's giving out this email address to every Tom, Dick, and Harry, that's very easy to allow allow these phishing attacks and these things to come in because, for me, like at my job, it was an my job email was not an email that I ever gave to anybody. So I barely got any emails. I would only get
Yeah.
emails from people that I worked with.
Right.
Um,
Hmm.
but all
It,
my
it,
other stuff came to my personal email address.
yeah. And in that guy's defense, the military is a weird animal because it just depends. So technically, yes, you're right. He shouldn't be mixing that stuff. However, I don't know his circumstances. He may be sitting in a base over in the Middle East someplace and has no, you, the military on bases, you can't connect. Well, in barracks
Lockdown.
is a little bit different, but you can't connect to a .mil domain without having a government-owned computer, and you can't
Mhm.
put a personal email on your government-owned computer. So if he's sitting in a certain place in a certain spot, that may be the only contact he has with the outside world is through that email, and he doesn't have much of a choice.
Wow.
So
Wow.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Interesting. Yeah, that is interesting.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's it seems like a risk though, but
I've
anyway.
been there, done that when 20 years in the Navy floating around the ocean on ship, and it was the only way to get a hold of me was through that email address. So I've got plenty of
Yeah.
family,
Yeah.
things like that. And
Hmm.
the true on in the government realm, in the military realm, most of the regular emails that you can get are going to be on uh, the what they call the non-essential military side. There's a secret internet and a top secret internet that sit above the regular internet that nobody else can even get to, and that's where all the critical information. So they don't worry
Nice.
about the non-classified internet
Yeah.
as much. It's kind of almost there for that purpose of regular
Hmm.
communication.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. Hmm.
Cheaper than sending letters.
Well, and a lot faster too. I
Faster.
A
mean,
lot faster, yeah.
hey, I joined the
Yeah.
military in the 80s, and it was like I ended up north and around the North Pole region, freezing my butt off, and I'm sending a letter to
Mm.
my mom telling her to send me a sweater. Took a month and a half to get to her. By the time she gets the sweater to me, I'm back home and it's 100 degrees out. It's like,
It's July. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep,
Oh man. Okay,
Wow.
so viability, folks. Access equals control. If someone gets in, they control your operations, your marketing, your finances. Protecting those core accounts keeps your business running safely. So let's get into cybersecurity as a culture, not just a checklist. We were talking about that a little bit.
yeah.
All right. So why we're going to talk about why security isn't a one-time project. It's a way of operating the business, building a culture of security and setting rules. So for device usage. All right. So how do you help Todd in this case with solo micro businesses, small businesses build security in without slowing things down?
I like to build a foundation from the beginning, even if you're a solopreneur with no employees. If you have the foundation in place as you grow and bring on employees, it's easy because you already have everything you need. So what I do is I make all the business owners wear two hats. You got one hat as the boss, writing all these policies. Well, I write them for them, but writing the policies and then they sign the policy as the boss saying this is a company policy. Then they put on each of those policies has an addendum to it uh, and other policies that feed into it, like acceptable use of company information or acceptable use of company assets if you're using a company-owned computer. If you ever worked in a big company, these are all things everybody signs the first day of work, saying, oh, these are all the
Wow.
policies and you got to follow them. So
Yeah.
I do the same thing. I build those policies up. Then I have the business owner take off their owner hat and put on their worker bee hat, because if you're a solopreneur, you're doing both. And now you have to sign all those policies saying that you know what the company policy is and you're going to follow it. And then when you hire other people, you make them do the exact same thing. You teach them. You say, hey, this is, like Simone said, this is the way we do things. We're going to make sure we use strong passwords. We're going to make sure we use multi-factor authentication. We're not going to be playing on Facebook at the same time we got QuickBooks open with all our finances up, things like that. And you make them sign those policies. And then you have to hold training every couple of months. You got to remind them, hey, these are what the policies are. Whether it's making a little poster and hanging it on the wall, shooting out emails if everybody's working remote, whatever it is, but keep that and keep it forefront. You can't make a policy and tell all your employees to do something when you violate it yourself every day, because then they're going to look at you going, well, he doesn't really care. Why should I? So that's one of
Yeah.
those things where we just gotta, and that's how I play a part in that is I help provide that training. I help write these policies. I help them implement, give them the tools they need to, I say tools loosely, but, um, you can't solve everything with software. So some of this stuff is just, elbow grease and getting it
Yep.
done and attitude. But if security is forefront in your mind, if you won't email something to somebody, if one of your employees is like, hey, I need access to this or whatever, and you're like, sorry, I can't email you that document. It's got sensitive information. We can't put it
Hmm.
in email. Let me upload it to some portal and then you can download it or whatever. And if you force them to, work that way, then that feeds back to the clients, and then the clients are like, hey, these guys are, keeping my information safe, because
Hmm.
there's a trust there. I mean, us as consumers, when you go to a doctor, you go to a mortgage company, you go to the bank, you go to wherever, just put your kid in school, and the first thing they ask you is social security number. You're just assuming they're doing something to keep that thing safe.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
and in today's world, unfortunately, I've seen behind the curtain way too many times. You can't always assume that they're doing what they need to do, and you need to start questioning these people. But as a business
Hmm.
owner, you need to make sure you and all your employees are doing what they need to do to earn, keep that trust, earn that trust.
What would you say to businesses that are not using employees but freelancers? Or virtual assistants, VAs?
Right.
How do
Same
you
thing. For me, when I say employees, I don't care if they're W-2, 1099, volunteers, your grandkids, whoever it is. If they represent your company, they got to follow the rules.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
It's all the same.
and I have plenty of business owners that have virtual assistants and bookkeepers and offshore people working in other countries or scattered all over this country, and everybody's working from home. There's a bunch of different homes, um, and I always tell them the same thing. I mean, you're as a business owner, you're responsible for the security. I believe, in my opinion, it is well worth you to pay the extra couple of bucks to get security on all your other people's computers, even if you don't own them, than to sit there and wait for them to make a mistake that's going to put you out of business.
Or
Good
even
principle.
provide them with equipment, I guess, to
Right.
make that
Yeah, which
easier.
is the more, and people ask me that, well, should I let them have their own or should I buy one? Well, if as long as you're forcing, well, I shouldn't say forcing them, but providing them with the security and putting the security on their equipment, doesn't really matter who
Yeah,
owns it.
yeah, yeah,
You may have a little bit more control if you own all the computers, but you know, now you're talking $1,000 an employee to buy them all computers. So I mean, a lot of
yeah.
businesses may not
That's
have that
pricey.
expense.
So
Yeah, and then
are you
getting that
saying like,
equipment back if that something happens with that employee and they
Exactly.
yeah,
leave.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, it's a bad
Then you
idea.
fire them and hope and yeah, after you fire them, you hope they send it
Yeah,
back to you in working condition,
yeah,
right? Yeah. So
That's right.
I'm all for, I think most people, and most people aren't stupid. I mean, if you do something for a living that's collecting a bunch of people's information, you got to keep that stuff safe. I mean,
yeah,
you may not know how exactly,
yeah,
but you need to do something. So it's
yeah,
if you provide people with the tools and say, hey, I know you're going to use your own computer, but I want you to talk to my cyber guy, and he's going to download some software on your computer and teach you how to do a couple of things and make sure you got your settings right. Most people aren't going to argue with that.
yeah. All right. So what are some signs that a business is maturing in its approach to cybersecurity?
I would say that's a really good question. I don't think I've ever been asked that before. That's good. So I would say, as far as that, as far as the maturity level, I would say is definitely um, having a culture of the cybersecurity built to a level where you're not afraid for me to come in and test it. Let me call a couple of your employees up as a random person and say, hey, I need access to so and so's account. They told me to check on something for them and see if somebody's going to spill the beans over the phone and give me all this information or not. Or call up with the one we used to do all the time. They've actually had polls on this of how many people did this, but call, oh, the boss is out on the golf course and he told me I got to have his computer fixed by the time he gets back. I need his password. And the secretary always gives up the password.
Oh yes.
And it's like,
Oh
first of all,
yes.
why does she know his password? Second of all, don't give it up to anybody who calls on the
Yeah.
phone, but things like that. So
Mm.
I think if you have good security in place, one of the things you're gonna it, it's kind of like marketing. You can't necessarily prove that an ad brought you any business, but if you quit doing all that stuff, business slows down, right? There's not a one-to-one direct correlation, but just overall,
Mhm.
and I think that's
Yeah.
the same thing. If you have a good culture of cybersecurity in place, you're going to see a whole lot less incidents. Um, and I'll tell you, without any major incidents or any major data breaches, last year, monitoring 100 computers from about 40 different companies, and I had 451 malware blocks. So if they hadn't had good security software on there, there's 451 people that would have had malware out of 100. So that's
Mm.
that's an average of about once, I'm seeing them over once a day, but my clients are individually are seeing stuff at least once every 6 months. Somebody's clicking on a phishing email and getting something downloaded to their computer.
Yeah.
And if you have a good culture in place, you're either going to catch that or not, have ways of stopping it and defending against it so that it doesn't actually affect you and take you down.
I guess one of the clearest ways you can tell if it's maturing in their approach to cybersecurity is whether or not they've had a breach. I guess that's like,
Well,
or
and,
how
and,
many
and that's
breaches
the
they've had,
problem
maybe. I
I
don't
run
know.
into all the time, just
Yeah.
like you said at the beginning. I got people calling me, oh, my Google just got locked. I can't get into it. And I'm like, well, what are you doing for security? Well, I had Norton once about 3 years ago, but it expired and I never bothered to put it back on there because it slowed my computer down. I don't use multi-factor because I couldn't figure it out or, whatever. And I'm just like, so basically you're doing nothing and then you just got attacked and you're trying to figure out why. And the answer is because you were doing nothing. It's
Yeah.
so which is fine as a consumer, but if you're, entrusted with other people's information, that's not the right answer.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So something to keep in mind to our listeners out there, if you're thinking about building a valuable business, if you have somebody who is looking to buy a business, or you're looking to hand it off to somebody like maybe your son, your daughter, or whatever, um, risk is a factor here. Like how much at risk of a risk does the business represent? How much risk is involved with the business, especially when it comes to cybersecurity? And if there's anything left unaddressed, then that leaves security gaps, and those are some red flags that may trip up a buyer, in the process. So
Yeah.
something to be aware of, something to think about and to take into consideration. Having on the flip side, however, having that stuff documented, having your documented security practices, that's going to make you look that much better, right? That becomes part of that valuable, intangible aspect of your business. Well, I guess it is kind of tangible because it's written down, but
Well,
like
No,
and
and I
your
think that's
people have to be
this is the
trained very
IP,
well
yeah, and the
too.
you
Yeah.
know, if
process.
if you come looking at my
Yeah,
business and I tell you I got 10 employees and they know what they're doing, okay, great. Now
yeah,
I tell you I got 10 employees and here's their training manual, here's all their training
yeah,
records, this is what they've trained on, this is what we do,
yeah,
here's written policies for how to react to situations.
yeah,
Now you're like, oh my gosh, these guys got their stuff together. This is a good business.
Right, because if
yeah.
you have all the
Boom.
manuals and all the documentation and everything, but your people are still kind of running amok and clicking
Yeah,
on every link that comes into their emails from random people and giving passwords over the phone to
Yep.
to
yeah,
an
yeah, yeah.
authoritative voice on the other end,
Right.
then it doesn't matter. It's got to be
It's
both.
Yep.
some sincere problems in that case. Okay, very good. Well, we are pretty much toward the end here. We do a quick recap. Small doesn't mean safe necessarily. If you're a small business, it doesn't mean that you are safe. You don't be the proverbial ostrich with your head in the sand here in this case, right?
I
You
think
really
with
got to
the
face this head
small
on.
business, smaller businesses tend to be the most vulnerable, aren't they? Because they don't have
Yeah.
these
Right.
systems in place, and they
Well, they
tend to.
assume that because they're small, Nobody's going to go after
Yeah,
me,
Or
but
but
or a
these,
lot of people have tried to get security and unfortunately they can't. Uh, which is why I got into this business in the first place. My best friend got hacked and he tried to find someplace, and everywhere we called, you had to have 1,000 employees or more to use their products.
yeah,
oh
All these
wow,
big, all the commercials you see on TV for all these cybersecurity things that
yeah, yeah.
those are
It's
their
big
client
business,
list is Fortune
you
500
know.
level and enterprise level.
Yeah,
They're
that's
they're looking for General Motors. They're not looking for you. Um,
that's a lot of
and
money.
and matter of fact, we found a couple that said they specialized in small business and called them up and they're like, oh yeah, we love small business. You got to have 250 employees, 10 million in revenue, five guys in your IT department. It's like that is not a small business. If I got
Yeah.
250 employees and 10 million in revenue, I'm sitting on a beach drinking margaritas. I ain't worried about this stuff. It's like
Yeah.
somebody else is. I hired somebody to do that. I don't know, but
Yeah.
anyways, yeah.
Yeah.
So uh, a lack of resources for and that's why I do
that's
what I
another
do
thing
is
too.
because I'm here to be the little guy helping the little guy because nobody else will do it. But that's so some of the ones that want it just can't figure out how to do it or how to find somebody that can help them. So that's a big thing too. But it's definitely
And I
um,
think you start with a smaller business as they grow, that habit's already built in.
right. That's
Yep.
what I mean. You don't want to wait until you got 5 employees before you start setting working hours and setting up, processes and procedures for how to do security or how to change pay. I've gone into businesses before that had 4 employees, 4 computers. They wanted me to fix a problem that they had, which was every time, full disclosure, my wife worked there. Every time my wife threw a grandbaby's picture up as her background on her Windows computer, it changed all of theirs. And I go in there and
Oh.
start looking around, and because they've got one Gmail address from the owner that everybody is using that Microsoft account to sign into their computer. So they're basically
Oh
all signed
my.
in as the same person. So every time
Oh
one of them
my.
changes something or moves something, it does it on all 4 computers.
Oh
And I'm just
my.
like, okay, first thing we're going to do
Wow.
is make everybody an email address with their
Yeah.
own logons, their own passwords. We're getting rid of this joint shared account thing going on, but just little things like that. So a lot of times people just they don't know. You set it up that way years ago and you never bothered to look and see if it's still good or if you have to change it. And
Mhm.
so I think in today's world, not to say you have to hire me personally, but you need to hire somebody. You got to have help. This cybersecurity is not something that you can tackle as a normal person without expertise and training. You need to have, the bad guys have professionals working for them. You got to get a professional working for you.
Yeah. Your
Good
core
advice.
accounts, you don't want to relinquish your core accounts. Those are the keys to your kingdom, folks. And having that security is a part of your, making a viable and valuable business. So crucial information here, something that we often overlook, I think, unfortunately, especially when it comes to operations and processes. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
Much to the detriment of the business owner, I think. All right, so if you want to find out more about Todd and perhaps work with him, go to cybersecurity4, number 4biz, biz.com, /contact and get in touch with him. I think, Todd, you offer a free 1 hour session. Is that right?
That is correct. Yep. I
If I remember
free consultation just to find out where you're
consultation.
at, what you need, if I'm the right fit for you, that kind of stuff. Yep.
Yeah, awesome. And you out there and listeners, look at your Google, your Apple, Microsoft logins. Make sure that they are secure and safe. You are using long passwords that are unguessable, and you're keeping those stored safely in a password manager. You're using 2FA. I think those are important keys. And subscribe to our channel and learn about more helpful tips like this. And yeah, so protect your business, grow your business. Love to have you back. And yeah, that's all I got. Simone, what
Absolutely.
you
We'd
got?
love to see you next time. And if you learned something today, put your biggest takeaway in the comments. Let us know. Let's keep this discussion going. This is a topic that is so important, but most of us don't really think about that often. So I don't know, for me, I learned a few things today. So thank